I meet my real estate agent out here on Coyote Pass because it's just come to the point where the family's not going to live here. I'm positive that Janelle's not going to move out here.
It began with vision. Coyote Pass, 4 big chunks of land in Flagstaff, was to be the Brown family's promised land, their forever home, the symbol that would finally confirm Kody's leadership and the strength of a family bound by faith, sacrifice, and unity. Cameras showed him standing proudly on that bare ground, arms out as if offering the kingdom he had created. He talked of dreams of 2 houses for 2 wives, of growing children playing together, of a family heritage that would endure long after the studio lights went out. But even while he smiled for the cameras, rumors flew. Land isn't land. It is money, contracts, deeds, and deadlines. And right from the start, none of them meshed. Janelle fretted about funding. Christine questioned why no building ever materialized. Meri sensed her name left off the documents, and controlling it all was Kody, offering answers that never came. The Coyote Pass dream was rendered in hues of salvation for a family, yet in real life it had already become their demise. With each step towards the construction of those homes, they were inching towards bankruptcy. Each gathering regarding the land led to fights, and each postponement revealed a truth no one dared utter. Coyote Pass would not be the savior of the family. It would tear them apart, and the early cracks weren't caused by money or paperwork. They were caused by betrayal within the family itself, when one of the wives came to see that the dream was never destined for her. On the outside, Coyote Pass was a clean slate, but below the surface, anger sprouted like weeds. Christine was the first to tell the truth that no one wanted to hear. She had been the peacemaker all those years, the one who smiled through the mess, but she could no longer turn a blind eye to what was before her. She saw money being drained into Robyn's mansion, while her own children were told to wait, to sacrifice, to accept less. Every time Christine asked about the land, Kody brushed her off with the same empty promise. "We're working on it, just be patient." But patience doesn't construct houses. Patience doesn't prevent children from questioning why one family side is comfortable and others aren't. And Christine hit her threshold. She wondered if the Coyote Pass dream was even real, or merely another fantasy Kody employed to maintain dominance. Janelle was stuck in the middle. She believed more than anyone that the vision existed. She invested all her savings into it, believing one day her efforts would pay off. She moved in an RV onto the land, willing to give up everything just to prove that Coyote Pass still had a chance. But no matter how hard she pushed to move ahead, she came up against a wall. Permits, funding, or Kody's change of priorities back to Robyn's comfort. Meri was a specter in the making. Her name wasn't on the property as she had envisioned it would be, her position in the dream eliminated without her knowledge. She questioned him, but Kody dodged. He accused her of overreacting in real life. She was being systematically removed from the future of the family. Behind all the drama was one reality the wives were coming to realize. Coyote Pass wasn't about land. It was about power. Kody had wielded it as a vow, a diversion, a means to keep them in the hopes. But the fissures were widening. Christine's uncertainties were becoming a movement. And once she stood, nothing about Coyote Pass or the family would ever be the same. Because when Christine did finally leave, she didn't just depart from Kody. She ripped the heart out of the dream that was keeping the family together, and Coyote Pass started to break apart. The moment Christine made her decision, everything changed. For years, she had carried the weight of the family's fractures, smiling when she was ignored, cooking dinners for kids who weren't her own, trying to stitch together a unity that never truly existed. But Coyote Pass was the breaking point. She had invested her trust, her faith, her money, and in return, she got excuses. When Christine told Kody she was leaving, his fury was instant. He accused her of betrayal, of turning her back on their dream. But Christine saw it differently. "What dream?" she asked. There were no homes, no plans, no security. Only endless promises, while she and her children struggled. She knew the truth. The land had never been for everyone. It was always about Robyn. The fallout was explosive. The children sided with their mother, stunned by the years of sacrifices that suddenly made sense. They remembered the conversations, the constant excuses about why money was short, why building never started, why their futures had to wait. Coyote Pass wasn't a family dream, it was a weapon used to control them. Christine walked away not just from Kody, but from the illusion. Her departure sent shockwaves through the rest of the family. If she could leave, so could anyone. The perfect facade that Kody worked so hard to protect shattered overnight. And without Christine, the dream of Coyote Pass became even harder to justify. Kody tried to spin it, telling the others Christine was selfish and had abandoned the plan. But deep down, he knew the truth. Her exit wasn't a rebellion, it was a revelation. She had called out the lie in front of everyone, and no amount of spin could cover it up. And if Christine's exit cracked the dream, Janelle's next move would take a sledgehammer to it, turning Coyote Pass from a dream into a battlefield. If Christine's departure exposed the lie, Janelle's struggles on the land proved it. Unlike the others, Janelle still believed in the dream, at least at first. She was practical, steady, always the one to focus on long-term stability. She had poured more of her personal money into Coyote Pass than anyone, convinced that her sacrifice would eventually pay off. While others pulled back, Janelle doubled down. She moved into an RV on the barren land, determined to show that it could be done. With no plumbing, no real comfort, and nothing but the wide Arizona sky above her, she sacrificed everything to prove her loyalty to the vision. Her kids watched her struggle, some angry, some heartbroken, as she lived without the security she had earned after years of working harder than anyone else in the family. But Kody wasn't there. He wasn't building alongside her. He wasn't sacrificing with her. He was at Robyn's house, in her warm mansion, sleeping under a solid roof while Janelle froze in a trailer. When she asked for support, he gave her excuses. When she asked for resources, he told her to wait. And when she pressed harder, he snapped, blaming her for not being patient, accusing her of disrespect. The dream of Coyote Pass was supposed to unite them. Instead, it became the very thing that showed Janelle just how alone she really was. She had risked everything, but she wasn't rewarded with progress. She was rewarded with neglect. And slowly, Janelle realized what Christine had already seen. Coyote Pass was never going to be their future. Her children urged her to face the truth. They saw what she didn't want to admit: that her loyalty was being exploited, her sacrifices ignored, and the land, the very soil beneath her feet, became a daily reminder that she was fighting for a dream that only existed in Kody's imagination. And as Janelle's patience ran out, another revelation came to light, one that exposed not just Kody's neglect, but the secret financial moves that made Coyote Pass impossible from the very start. While Janelle lived in an RV on the cold, dry land of Coyote Pass, Robyn was unpacking boxes in her new mansion. It was a 5-bedroom fortress, complete with a yard, high ceilings, and every comfort Janelle and Christine had been told the family couldn't afford. The contrast was staggering. On one side, a wife was scraping together pennies, living in sacrifice, waiting for promises that never came. On the other, Robyn was enjoying the security and luxury of a home purchased without hesitation. When the financial documents finally surfaced in court, the picture became even clearer. Funds that were supposed to be pooled into the family account, money that Janelle had trusted Kody to manage, had been quietly redirected. Payments labeled as family investments were traced back to personal accounts and entities that only Kody and Robyn controlled. Witnesses recalled arguments where Janelle had begged for resources to build, only to be told the family account was empty. But those same months, transactions revealed shopping sprees, jewelry purchases, and deposits linked directly to Robyn's home. It was no longer speculation, it was evidence. For Christine and Janelle, this was the final betrayal. They hadn't just been ignored, they had been deceived. While they were told the family dream was too expensive, Kody and Robyn were living out their own private dream, funded by the sacrifices of everyone else. The irony was cruel. Coyote Pass had always been marketed as their legacy, but the truth was written in black and white on the bank statements. It wasn't the family's future, it was Kody and Robyn's safety net. And when those statements were read aloud in court, the judge's reaction made it clear. Coyote Pass wasn't just a broken dream, it was evidence in a case that could bring the entire family empire crashing down. The courtroom was silent as the documents were laid out on the projector. Line by line, transfer by transfer, The truth unfolded for everyone to see. What had once been whispers of favoritism and suspicion now stood as undeniable evidence. The family account, the very fund that was supposed to build homes on Coyote Pass, had been siphoned into private ventures. The judge leaned forward, his expression hardening with every slide. Christine sat with her arms crossed, her eyes wet but determined. Janelle took notes furiously, shaking her head as if to keep from screaming. Meri, who had once been silent, now clenched her fists, the reality that she too had been excluded hitting her harder than ever. Kody tried to speak, his voice rising in self-defense. He talked of sacrifice, of long-term planning, of being misunderstood. He claimed it was, for the good of the family, a temporary move to protect assets, but the numbers didn't lie, and neither did the dates. The same months Janelle was told the family account was too empty for her to build. Deposits were going toward Robyn's mortgage. The same weeks Christine begged for support with her move to Utah. Funds were being spent on luxuries no one else saw. The atmosphere in the room shifted. What had been a family dispute turned into something bigger, a case of financial betrayal, misrepresentation, and calculated deceit. And it wasn't just about the land anymore. It was about justice. But the most devastating blow wasn't the money. It was still to come. Because when Kody opened his mouth again, his own words, reckless, arrogant, and unfiltered, would destroy what little defense he had left. When Kody took the stand, he looked defiant. He straightened his suit jacket, squared his shoulders, and tried to carry the weight of authority he had always demanded from his wives. But in the courtroom, there were no obedient nods, no cameras he could charm, no wives he could silence. There were only the judge, the jury, and the truth. At first, his words followed the script he had rehearsed. I've sacrificed more than anyone. I've carried this family. I've made the hard decisions. But then, arrogance overtook him. He began to speak freely, and in doing so, he revealed far more than he realized. When pressed about the hidden accounts, he snapped. Of course I kept money aside. You can't trust everyone with finances. Some of them don't understand the bigger picture. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. He had just admitted to deliberately excluding his own wives from the very dream he promised them. Christine's lawyer seized on the moment, asking if by some of them he meant Christine and Janelle. Kody didn't hesitate. They never respected my authority. Why should they get equal say when they didn't support me the way Robyn did? Those words hung in the air like a bombshell. It wasn't about financial planning. It wasn't about protecting assets. It was about loyalty. His loyalty to one wife at the cost of all the others. The judge's expression darkened. The jury shifted uncomfortably, and Kody, oblivious, kept talking, digging his own grave one arrogant sentence at a time. And just when it seemed he couldn't make things worse, one phrase slipped from his mouth, words so damning that even Robyn bowed her head, realizing there was no way back. The courtroom was already tense, but then it happened. Kody leaned forward, his voice rising, his hands gripping the edge of the witness stand. He was no longer answering questions. He was lashing out, desperate to reclaim control. They should be grateful, he shouted. Without me, there is no family, no show, no land. Coyote Pass was never theirs. It was mine. I built this. I own this. The words echoed through the courtroom like thunder. For years, Kody had told his wives it was our dream, a collective future, a family legacy. But in that single outburst, he admitted what Christine and Janelle had been saying all along. Coyote Pass was never meant to belong to all of them. It was his possession, his control, his weapon. Christine's lawyer pounced, repeating his words back to him. So, to be clear, Mr. Brown, when you told your wives this land was for all of you, you knew that wasn't true. Kody hesitated, sweat gathering at his brow. He muttered something about miscommunication, but the damage was done. His arrogance had shattered the very defense his lawyer had been building. He had exposed the selfishness and favoritism that had turned the land from a dream into a battlefield. Across the room, Christine covered her mouth, tears streaming. Janelle sat frozen, the final confirmation of years of betrayal breaking her resolve. Even Meri, who had long lived in the shadows of neglect, shook her head in disbelief. And Robyn, Aunt Kody's greatest defender, looked down, unable to meet anyone's eyes. The silence that followed wasn't just uncomfortable. It was damning. Kody's words had destroyed his case, and when the judge finally spoke, his ruling would turn those words into consequences. Kody could never escape, ending not just his case, but the very dream of Coyote Pass itself. The courtroom was silent as the judge leaned forward, his expression unreadable. For weeks, he had listened to testimony, studied financial records, and watched the family tear itself apart in front of him. But now, with Kody's own words echoing in everyone's minds, there was no more room for spin, no more excuses to hide behind. The judge's voice was calm, steady, but sharp enough to cut through the air. This court finds that the defendants knowingly misled their family, diverted funds, and used Coyote Pass as a tool of manipulation rather than the family investment it was promised to be. Gasps filled the room. Christine squeezed Janelle's hand tightly. Meri, usually stoic, closed her eyes as if years of silence were finally being acknowledged. Even Robyn couldn't hold back her tears, though whether they were for herself, for Kody, or for the empire collapsing around them was impossible to tell. The judge continued, his words hitting like hammer blows. The land known as Coyote Pass will be auctioned immediately, and all proceeds are to be divided according to the original contributions of the wives involved. Christine's lips trembled as relief washed over her. Janelle sat back in her chair, stunned but vindicated. For them, it wasn't just about money. It was about justice. Kody, however, exploded. He slammed his fist against the table, shouting that the court didn't understand, that he was the victim, that everything he had done was for his family. But the gavel fell, silencing him. His words had already doomed him. The law had spoken, and the dream he clung to so desperately had slipped through his fingers forever. And yet, as devastating as the ruling was, the real collapse was still to come, the emotional fallout that would leave the Brown family more divided than ever before. When the gavel struck for the final time, the courtroom didn't just close a case, it closed an era. The collapse of Coyote Pass wasn't only about land, or money, or contracts. It was about trust, and that trust, once broken, could never be repaired. Christine walked out first, her head high, her children waiting with open arms. For her, this wasn't just a legal victory, it was freedom. Janelle followed, quieter, but with the weight of vindication in her steps. She had given everything to the dream, and though it had cost her years of sacrifice, the truth was finally out for the world to see. Meri lingered in the hallway, her face a mixture of grief and release. For so long, she had been silent, watching from the shadows. But the verdict confirmed what she had always feared. She had been written out of the family's future long before the land was lost. And then came Kody and Robyn. He stormed out red-faced, shouting about betrayal, about injustice, about how no one understood the burden he carried. But no one followed him. The man who had once demanded loyalty now found himself standing alone. Robyn trailed behind him, mascara streaked across her cheeks, clutching her purse as though it could anchor her to a life that was already gone. Outside, reporters swarmed. The word spread quickly. Coyote Pass auctioned. The Browns' dream is over. And with that headline, the illusion of the Brown family unity, the empire they had built for cameras and contracts, crumbled into dust. What remained were scattered pieces, children scarred by division, wives who had given their all, and a patriarch who had gambled everything on control and lost. Coyote Pass was supposed to be a legacy. Instead, it became the symbol of their downfall. And long after the land is sold, the memory of its collapse will echo as a warning. A dream built on lies cannot stand. But even now, one question lingers. If Coyote Pass was only the beginning, what other secrets still wait in the shadows, ready to bring down what's left of the Browns? The courtroom verdict may have ended the legal battle, but what came next was far messier. The land was gone, the accounts exposed, but the real damage was written in the hearts of the family members who had lived through it. Christine returned to Utah, surrounded by her children, but the scars of years spent being dismissed and ignored didn't heal overnight. She had won, yes, but the price was steep. For every moment of relief, there was a memory of nights spent wondering why her husband didn't care enough to fight for her and her children. Janelle, practical to the end, focused on rebuilding. She had always been the backbone of the family finances, the one who kept things steady while Kody chased visions. But now she had nothing left of that investment. The money she put into Coyote Pass was gone forever. And though the court gave her vindication, it couldn't return what she had lost. The years, the effort, the hope. Meri was perhaps the most haunted. The verdict had confirmed what she had long suspected, that she was never truly part of the future. Coyote Pass had been a cruel reminder of her fading place in the family, and now that it was gone, she was left to question what her years of loyalty had even meant. And then there was Robyn. Though she had once been triumphant, living in comfort while the others struggled, she was now the face of resentment. And greed, she may have had a house, but she had lost the trust of an entire family. But the harshest blow fell on Kody himself. For a man who thrived on control, the verdict had stripped away everything: his authority, his image, and the very dream he used to hold the family together. He had stood before a judge and admitted it himself. Coyote Pass was his, not theirs, and in doing so he destroyed the very foundation of the family he claimed to lead. And just when the dust seemed to settle, whispers began to spread because the auction of Coyote Pass wasn't the end. It was the beginning of an investigation that could go even deeper into Kody's hidden accounts. The day of the auction arrived with a heavy silence over Flagstaff. Coyote Pass, once the centerpiece of Kody's vision, was now reduced to a parcel of land on a legal docket. What was supposed to be the family's forever home became an item for bidders, strangers with no connection to the blood, sweat, or tears poured into it. Christine and Janelle didn't attend the auction. For them, the chapter was already closed. But reporters swarmed the courthouse steps, cameras rolling as the land was divided and sold. It didn't fetch the fortune Kody had boasted it was worth. In fact, the bids came in lower than expected, a final insult to years of promises that had amounted to nothing. When the gavel fell, Coyote Pass officially slipped away. It was gone, forever. Not one Brown family member held a claim to it anymore. The dream was erased from the map, leaving only bitterness in its place. But that wasn't the end. The financial records revealed during the trial had sparked more than just courtroom drama. They caught the attention of state regulators. Questions were raised about where the money had gone, about the LLCs that seemed to exist only for Kody and Robyn's benefit. Investigators began digging, looking for signs of fraud, tax evasion, or mismanagement. Suddenly, Kody wasn't just facing the loss of land. He was facing the possibility of deeper legal trouble, the kind that no amount of charm or excuses could talk his way out of. And within the family, the whispers grew louder. Children who once stayed quiet now spoke openly about what they had seen and heard. Stories surfaced of money disappearing, of priorities that always favored Robyn's side of the family. The illusion of Kody as a misunderstood patriarch was shattered. What remained was a man cornered by his own lie. But the most shocking twist wasn't in the auction or the investigation. It came from within the family itself, when one of Kody's own children stepped forward with evidence that could unravel everything. Just when it seemed Kody's world couldn't crumble any further, the most devastating blow came not from a judge, not from a lawyer, but from one of his own children. Tired of the silence, tired of watching their mother struggle while Kody played the victim, they stepped forward with receipts, screenshots, and voice recordings that told the story in Kody's own words. In those recordings, Kody admitted to moving money around to protect it from Christine and Janelle. He bragged that the wives wouldn't dare challenge him because the land was the only dream keeping them tied to him, and he mocked their sacrifices, laughing that Janelle was wasting her time camping in a tin can while he and Robyn lived like kings. The recordings spread like wildfire. Fans, once divided, united in outrage. The media picked it up, headlines screaming betrayal and greed. TLC distanced itself, quietly scrubbing promotional material that had once painted Kody as the devoted patriarch. The narrative he had controlled for years slipped completely from his hands. For Christine, the recordings were vindication. For Janelle, they were heartbreaking proof of everything she had feared. For Meri, they were a cruel reminder of her place in the family she had never truly been part of. And for Robyn, they were the final confirmation that the empire she thought she had secured was nothing more than ashes. Kody stood alone, shouting into the void about betrayal, about loyalty, about how no one truly understood him. But no one was listening anymore. The man who once commanded the loyalty of 4 wives and 18 children was left with nothing. No land, no legacy, no credibility. Coyote Pass was gone. the family was shattered. And the dream that had been sold to the world as unity and love was revealed for what it truly was, a house of cards built on lies, favoritism, and control. And as the dust settled, one truth remained clear. This wasn't just the collapse of Coyote Pass. This was the collapse of Kody Brown himself. Because in the end, it wasn't the courts, the lawyers, or the land that destroyed him. It was his own words, his own arrogance, and the family he underestimated finally rising to tell the truth.